It is member-supported Hawaii Public Radio, all things considered, and I'm Dave Lawrence. Real thrill here. We are down at the Blue Note, following up with a cat that I have been able to talk to twice on the phone, but never in person. It's a real big thrill. The great Jimmie Vaughan. Aloha, mahalo, and thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you for having us.
It's a great thrill. And
great to be here.
Say again?
I said it's great to be here.
This is your first time in the Blue Note, and how long has it been since you've been in Honolulu? Quite a few years.
I think it's been 3 or 4 years. I can't exactly remember.
It was the other islands back in 2014 when you came. You didn't hit this one.
Right. We came to the Big Island and played 2 or 3, and then we played another island.
Maui.
Well, we played Maui, but we also played Kauai.
You are a traveling man, so we're stoked.
But I haven't been to Honolulu in a long time. And actually, I came here years and years ago in the 80s and took steel guitar lessons from the great Jerry Bird.
It's really cool. First time I talked to you, you told me all about that, and it was like, wow, he's really got a connection, and told me about all those records, and that's the kind of thing I was hoping to follow up with you on. I was trying to think of some of the things that I'm really curious about you, and I was listening to you talking at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame when you inducted your little brother. You told so much stuff. That speech was a great resource for somebody cutting an interview, and one of them was, your mom and dad, swing dancers, they love music, plus I learned you had uncles that really helped me to understand you. Uncles on both sides of the family who played guitar. Share some of those really early family musical memories where you realize, looking back now, that's what sort of put me on my path. Well,
first of all, my mother and dad always had some kind of music playing, and they loved it, and they were always going dancing. And my father and mother would have 42 parties, which is a domino game, on the weekends. And there'd be like 5, 10 couples come on the weekends. And sometimes musicians would come and play in the living room. Guys that my dad worked with. My father was an asbestos worker, and he was in the asbestos workers local in Dallas. And a lot of musicians would work as asbestos workers at the union. They'd sit on the bench. If they lost their gig, they'd go down there and work for a couple of weeks and make some quick money and then go back to playing. And so he knew a lot of musicians, and he loved music, and my mother too. And my father wanted to be a piano player, and he told me a lot of stories about music and everything when I was little. And he loved it. He would take me. I'm 4 years older than Stevie, so I started the whole thing. I started playing, and my father bought me a guitar when I was for $50. And he, after I got in a band, started playing with a bunch of guys at school. He would take me to the gigs. He would take us to the gigs and in the back of his truck, and he would sit there. All 3 fathers would argue about who had to take the kids. Oh, I'm sorry, honey. I had to take the kids to work tonight because we played in the summertime. We got a gig 6 nights a week.
The Hobnob place?
At the Hobnob Lounge. And we had played at a couple other clubs. And so my father just loved it, and he loved taking us down there. And
how old were you at that time?
13. So it was in the summer, and we'd been playing a few months. We've been playing at school and for people at dances and things like that, people's houses, and anywhere, But we loved being in a band and being musicians, and the whole thing was great. Dallas was full of musicians, hillbilly artists, jazz artists, blues artists. And it's always been a big center for that. And between Dallas and Fort Worth, there was a place called Jacksboro Highway, which was honky-tonks, like 10 or 15 honky-tonks, all the way in this one little area that had different laws than Dallas and Fort Worth, So everybody would go play there. And it was a whole strip, And so, there's always been a lot of music come out of Dallas. we could start naming names and we'd be here all night.
And how about your brother is 4 years younger? That must have had such an impression on him. Like, his kids are very impressionable as it is, but then to look at your older brother doing something that cool.
Well, I would play and play and play and play, and then I'd put the guitar down and say, "Don't touch my guitar," and of course he would pick it up and play. And so the thing about Stevie, I think one of the reasons he was so magnificent, if you want to call it something, on the guitar was he started so young. He started trying to play about the same time I did. It's just that he was too little and he couldn't go anywhere, and
So he was 8.
Yeah, yeah. So he basically started trying to play when he was 8 years old, and and I had all the blues records and had the Nightcaps. I don't know if you've heard the Nightcaps. They were a fabulous band from Dallas that had an album out called Wine, Wine, Wine. And it was all in the tradition of all those drinking songs, Little Son Jackson, and all that rock and roll stuff and blues stuff that was going on in Dallas.
There was one guy you mentioned on stage at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, your dad's friend Leonard, and that being a very important person with the guitar.
Yeah, Leonard was a fabulous musician, and he would come over at the domino parties I'm telling you about, and him and another guy that my dad worked with would sit in the living room and play guitars with each other, and they would play all these songs. And so one night, after I started trying to play, I was in there, so I'd always sit there and watch them. And he goes, "Okay, kid." He said, "What do you like?" And I said, "Well, I like blues." And he goes, "You mean like this?" And he played Jimmy Reed. Then he played John Lee Hooker. Then he played Chuck Berry. And then he played something else, And he said he loved it too. And so he showed me how to play, how all this stuff went, in person.
With your Montgomery Ward guitar.
Yeah, and I had like a 3-string guitar, but he had a real guitar with his name in the neck, Gibson, like a Chuck Berry, whatever that thing that Chuck Berry played was. I can't remember the name of it. A L something, the first one. One cutaway, 2 humbuckers, and the other guy had a Telecaster, and so they would play all kinds of stuff, blues. Country, of course, and they would play rock and roll, and they would do and then the next time they'd do it faster, and then they would do it faster and faster and faster until somebody blew it.
Wow.
And stuff like that. You couldn't have paid for this. Kind of a lesson,
Yeah. I mean, it was very authentic, and when I was listening to you talk about it, I realized, wow, this has a lot to do with how, it explains your down-home kind of quality. It explains your musical taste, too, a lot of what you were just saying there now. And what made you move? You moved to Austin. I never really figured it out. Like, what was the reason that you moved to Austin?
Well, way before I moved, I got in a band called the Chessmen, and they played fraternity parties all around Texas, Oklahoma, Louisiana, and they were very popular. They were all 21. I wasn't. So it was really great fun, and I got to go out over the weekends, and whenever they had a gig, and I'd go out for a couple of weeks with them, and I was having a ball. I was making $300 a week, which was a lot of money in the mid-'60s. I was making more money than my dad.
Yeah.
All of a sudden.
That puts it in perspective.
So, it was quite a trip, and we had a ball.
And that was the reason you moved, was because there was just opportunity.
Anyway, we would play in Austin a lot, and we'd play in Lubbock. We'd play in all the college towns in Texas, Oklahoma, Louisiana. So I got to go to all these places, and I always liked Austin. And so I went to San Francisco. I went to L.A., on my own. I bought a ticket and went out there and walked up and down Sunset Strip, saw the whiskey and saw all these things, and then got back on the plane and came home.
That was enough.
Well, I was just a kid. I had no money. I had $15. So it was just an exploration trip for me.
So it wasn't like you were turned off to that scene at all?
No. I was everything. L.A. was like Mars. You know, they had the music business, cars, the hot rod business. I had all the little hot rod magazines before I started playing music, so I was totally into cars. And L.A. was everything. Recording business, movie stars. You know, I had to go see it.
Burgers.
Yes.
Quite a few of them. When you get, one of the things I was, because I don't have a ton of time with you, but one of the stories, I never asked you about the Santana. You ended up on Havana Moon. Do you have any recollection? Like, how did you end up getting that gig?
Well, we used to play in San Francisco at this play, the Thunderbirds, called Wolfgangs. And it was one of the clubs that, what's his name, owned?
Bill Graham?
Bill Graham owned several clubs, and, you know, the great promoter, Bill Graham. And
he was linked to Santana, so I can...
Yeah, and he owned the club, and we'd play there all the time. And Santana liked our music, so when he wasn't working, he would come out and he would want to sit in, and you know, he gave me a guitar, and he liked blues. So he would come see us. And that's where I met Santana and, you know, all that. And
that's what led to the record.
He always remembered that. And one day he called me up and said, "Hey, I want to make a record with the Thunderbirds." And we're like, cool. And so we made Havana Moon, which was a Chuck Berry song.
Right. That's incredible. That's an incredible story. You've done so much stuff with your life, and I'm really appreciative. Thanks for sharing just a few minutes of it with us here today, and I'm very, very grateful. I could keep you talking for a lot longer, but I know you got to go do your show, and I hope this was okay. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. It's fabulous. Go ahead. Let's talk.
You sure? I got a couple more?
Yeah.
You're okay. The Antones, when I hear about Antones, you said you backed so many different people there. What is the thing when you look back at it now and think of all those encounters where you got to be the backing band for so many people there? What are the highlights, or what are the ones that you think back to and you think, man, that really helped shape me? Kind of like Leonard as a kid. This is another extension of that.
Yeah, well, when we knew Clifford, and we were a blues band in Austin, and I'd been in a band for 5 years before I met Kim Wilson. So before the Thunderbirds, I was already in a blues band, a small outfit, same way, same configuration, bass, drums, guitar, harmonica. And we did all that kind of stuff, you know, all the Chicago blues, Louisiana blues, Texas blues, all that kind of stuff, Jimmy Reed and all that. So when we got the Thunderbirds going was about the time, about a year afterwards, Clifford opened Antone's. And we were the house band like right away.
Incredible.
And so, you know, some of the first people that he had was Jimmy Rogers. He had Eddie Taylor. And so we were the band. And so we already knew all the stuff. We knew all their songs. And then he had Larry Davis, who wrote Texas Flood. He came. And Larry Davis was the guy who put the record out, Texas Flood, originally, the one that Stevie made popular. And so those were the kind of people that were coming in, and we would back everybody up. You know, from, you know, I can't even think of all the people because it was every week.
What an incredible lesson, though.
It was fabulous. It was like we got to play with our heroes at Blues College 6 nights a week.
It's a great way to leave it. Blues College, 6 nights.
Junior Wells, on and on and on and on. We'd have to sit down and make a list.
Next time you're in town, we'll get the pen and paper out. We'll make a list. It's a great Jimmie Vaughan. I really appreciate you taking some time for me, brother. I've been a big fan for over 30 years, so thank you for doing this.
My pleasure. Great to be here. Aloha, my friends. It's Guitarist Jimmie Vaughan with you. I'm back to support all things considered during this pledge drive. I had so much fun being a guest right here with my friend Dave Lawrence. My middle name is also Lawrence. But let me tell you, we couldn't do it without your support. You know this, so get up off the couch and send your pledge in. Thanks to all the members out there. And to everyone else, we're here waiting for you. The door is open. Come on in, and thanks a lot.